Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Anisha and I'm an associate software engineer at Red Hat. Today we're going to talk a little about React hooks. Recently I started getting into React hooks and even I'm a beginner, so I thought why not share it with others as well. Just a quick disclaimer, we won't get in more into the advanced implementation as this can be implemented in various different styles with various different logics. Plus, it would be a little easier for you to relate if you already have worked with React class components. So with that note, let's get started. So hooks are a new addition in React 16.8. They let us use state and other React features without writing a class. Hooks basically put our functions on Catalyst so that we can stop relying on classes and move on to functions. But if you prefer classes over functions, then it's a different thing, which I was used to do a few days back. So, but sooner or later, you'll have to dive into hooks to introduce your own logic into the functions in a simpler way. Hooks are basically like functions which hook into React state and lifecycle features from functional components. It does not work inside classes, but there are a couple of legit ways to do that by using hooks as higher order components. I haven't really dived into that, but yeah. So basically, if you write a functional component and then you want to add some state to it, previously you do this by converting into class, but now you can do it by using hooks inside the existing functional component. Now, good news is hooks are backward compatible, which means it doesn't contain any breaking changes. So also it doesn't replace any of the knowledge of previous React concepts. Just a few prerequisites like you need to have Node version 6 or above and NPM version 5.2 or above to run hooks, and of course a Create React App tool to run the React app. So I grabbed this list straight out of the documentation page. There are three basic hooks of state changes for reflecting changes as an effect to some actions, or use context for passing through data through the component tree without having to pass these props down manually at every level. And these are the basic hooks are the things that we often use in while programming the React. And there are a couple of additional hooks as well, which will be used for specific cases without worrying about edge cases. So why to use hooks? We know that components and top-down data flow help us organize a large user interface into small and independent and reusable chunks of code. However, we often can't break complex component down any further because the logic is stateful and we have different states, and it can't also be extracted to a function or another component. So that's a huge concern. We try to solve these situations with components alone, but we often end into trouble with huge components that are hard to refactor or test. We often get duplicated logic between different components. Like same thing will be happening in both the components, but unnecessarily we have to write code. And complex patterns like render props or the higher order components. In this scenario, hooks let us organize the logic inside a component into reusable isolated units. So we can have our logic fixed somewhere and use it again and again in different components. Now, here are two examples of was the same implementation in class components and hooks. So basically, what we're trying to do is we're having an input box, and the value typed inside the input box is getting stored in the state of the component. So historically, how we have structured our React component has been coupled to component lifecycles, which kind of forced related logic throughout the component doing the same thing. So before React hooks, if we wanted to create a dynamic component, we have to create class component and use lifecycle methods to change the state to make it reusable or to encapsulate it. So by creating an ES6 class, the class needs to be extended with React.component with render method inside it, which will return a JSX markup. Also, we need to assign initial state in the constructor with super keyword passing the props inside it. Whereas in hooks, the use state hook allows you to add states in functional component. Instead of setting an initial state with this dot state statement in the constructor, we can simply import the use state from React, which will allow us to set an initial state as an argument. Over here, we have used an empty string, and it's basically doing the same thing in less amount of code. And comparing with these two ways to create a component, we can clearly see that hooks need less code and it's more clear to understand, and definitely provides an opportunity to share non-visual logic implementation, as they say. Talking about bundle size, I compared these two the bundle size of these two apps, but I could hardly see difference of a few kilobytes. But in some articles and videos, we can see like up to 50% difference in bundle size between the class component and hooks component. So that's something definitely interesting to check out. Now, as we talked earlier, we need functional components for using hooks. So you can simply create a React app with create React app and create a functional component, which I believe most of us are already aware of. So I'll get into the hooks right now. So the first hook that we have is use state. So what does calling use state do? As we previously saw, that it declares a state variable. So in this example, what I'm trying to do is on button click, I'm trying to increase a counter. So here at first we use the use state hook to initialize the state. Uh, the use state returns a tuple where the first parameter, which is a count, which is a variable to keep the current state of the counter, and the set count method that will allow us to update the counter state. And now we can use the set count method in any action. Here I'm using button click to update the state count anywhere. And in this case, we are using I'm using the current count to increase by 1, but it can do anything more than this as well. So when we want to display the current count in class, we read this state.count, but now we can simply wrap the variable inside curly braces and we're good to go. So the idea with hooks is that we are able to keep our code more functional, elegant, and avoid class-based components if it's not desired or if it's not needed at all. So a little bit more about the use state. So in the previous example, we saw that we are increasing just a single count. But if we want to, we have two different counts and we want to increase only a single count, then we can have two variables. And of course, we'll have one method because we are doing only one function and increasing a particular count. And in the use state, we'll initialize the values as an object for both of the variables. So then what happens when we call the method is if we use only if we only increase the count, then it will wash away the whatever state variable is there without the count. So we have to use dot current state to preserve the states of other state variables, and by this way we can preserve the other states and uh, increase or change a particular state variable. And if we want to change different states, then we can also do it by creating different use state hooks for two different variables and have two different methods, and similarly call these functions with whatever goal we want to achieve. If we don't want to change it, we can simply put it as the count remains the same. So this is a very basic example of using use state, which kind of replicates the state management and React class components. Now, the use effect hook let you perform side effects in functional components when some action is triggered. It tries to replicate lifecycle methods of class component. If you are familiar with React class lifecycle methods, you can think of use effect hook as component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount combined. Basically what happens is when what is happening here is we are having the use effect uh, hook which is getting triggered when there is any changes reflected in the dependency array, which is here. So on change of the value of the dependency array, it triggers an action where in this case which is logging the render. And by using this hook, you tell React that your component needs to do something after render. React will remember this function you passed, and it will call it later after performing the DOM updates. By default, it runs both after the first render and after every update. Instead of thinking in terms of mounting and updating, we might think like the effects happen after render, and it guarantees that the DOM is already updated when it runs the effects. So you can see that is also a cleanup option over here, which React performs the cleanup when component unmounts. However, as effects run for every render and not just once. This is why React also cleans up effects for the previous render before running the effects next time. So that's how use effect kind of replicates the uh, process of lifecycle methods in functional components. Now, use ref hook allows us to access the DOM elements imperatively. As per documentation, use ref returns a mutable ref object whose dot current property is initialized to the passed argument. The return object will persist for the full lifetime of the component. So essentially, use ref is like a box that can hold any mutable value in it, and its current property, and on change this value, on change of this value, it won't cause a re-render of the component. So here in this example, I'm trying to get a reference of the input element over here, and trying to focus it on a button click. So I got the reference. I created a reference with use ref, and then addressed it in the input element, and then on click I am trying to uh, focus on the input element by using the reference. So here we are using DOM element, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a DOM node. It can also be an integer or something else which can be changed with input ref dot current dot something, or if it's an integer with dot current plus plus. So it's like essentially like a changeable value. So use layout effect is kind of similar to use effect. It changes according to reading or writing event into the DOM. So this runs synchronously immediately after React has performed any DOM mutation. And this can be useful if you need to make DOM measurements, or like here I am trying to get uh, bounding client rect values when with input change. So as far as um, yeah, so as far as the scheduling is concerned, this works the same way as component did mount and component did update. So our code runs immediately after the DOM has been updated, but before the browser had a chance to paint these changes, but we can't really see it, these updates until the browser has repainted it. So this is an additional effect that is hardly used, but in some edge cases it might be very useful. So in this example, we are using trying to define use callback. So different function instances share. We often see different function instances sharing the same code, and often created inside React components. So essentially, what I'm trying to do over here is we're having a button click, and it's getting incremented uh, incremented on click, as we saw in the previous example. But what we are trying to do is we created another component increase and passed the function into it, and using the reference here to check the number of renders, and on click of these buttons we are calling the increment function. But when we use when we use a function inside a React component body, this function is recreated on every rendering. That's why even if we click for a few times, it's getting rendered multiple times. So to optimize and prevent multiple React renders, we use another React tool called React.memo. In programming, memoization is an optimization technique. It's used to speed up computing by storing the result of a function and returning a cached result when the same inputs occur again. But still, the component will render on every click as function is getting created every time. So to prevent that, we use callback. So we have used passed an inline callback. So callback in the same example. So what it's doing is it will return a memoized version of callback that only changes if any one of the dependencies has changed, and whenever the count or set count changes, the function will be created and it will be assigned to the variable. And in this component here, the function won't change, just the value will change. So this is helpful when passing callbacks to optimize child components that rely on parents rendering, which is kind of unnecessary. And React's use case hook is used to memorize function, which is already a small performance gain when functions are passed to other components without worrying about if the function is being recreated or reinitialized for every re-render of the parent component. So however, it works even well if we combine the React's memo API with use callback. So as we discussed earlier, that the child components get rendered even when the parents component changes. So to prevent that, we use React use memo, which keeps a check on it. So don't confuse React.memo with React use memo. You might run into use memo and think that it's the same as React memo. In a way, these are similar, but React Memo is a higher order component meant to optimize React functional component, but use memo is like more generic and optimizes a value. So essentially what I'm trying to do here is I'm having an input box where we have to put any number, and according to the number entered, we are creating Fibonacci series. And to check on the performance, I am having two checks and calculating the amount of time it's taking to create the Fibonacci calculation. So if you see in this example, when we are clicking on, we are changing the value in the input box. It's uh, you know calculating the Fibonacci's again. But when we are also changing the button component, we are clicking on it. It's also changing the calculations again and again. It's re-rendering along with the parent component. So to prevent that, we use memo, which is another hook, and it depends on the this array. And when like, basically it is saying that whenever the fib length state is getting changed, then call this function and run this. So essentially what it will do is whenever we are typing on the input box, then only the Fibonacci calculation will happen. But whenever will do actions on the parent component, such as button click or anything else, then it won't render the Fibonacci calculation, and hence optimizing the performance. So use reducer is an alternative to use state. So it accepts a reducer of type state. an action. You can see to create a reducer, we are having two different we're creating it's returning to a tuple with a variable and a dispatch function. So if you're familiar with Redux, then you might understand the syntax better. So use reducer is usually preferable to use state when you have complex state logic that involves multiple sub values. For example, we have two different buttons over here which are incrementing and decrementing the same count. So here we are having dispatch type increment and dispatch type decrement, and in the reducer function that we have initialized here, uh, it will with initialized here, it will have a switch condition according to the dispatch type, and will return the state according to what dispatch type is being called. So this involves multiple subvalues, and we can use it when the next state depends on the previous one. So yeah. So use context is probably the most familiar one that we all must have gone through. We see that the child components, when we want to pass our data from the parent component to the child component which is tested, we have to manually pass through the uh, data through all the levels. If we want to pass this particular username to component F, then we have to pass it through component C and component E, whereas in these both of these components, we actually are not requiring the username, right? So for example, in this component C, component E is nested, and again in component E, component F is nested. And if we want to pass a username from the app, the main component, to uh, a component F, then essentially what we usually do is we pass the props to every nested component. So using context solves that issue. So what it does is we create a user context with create react.create context, and then export it to be used it in the component where we are going to use the value. And inside the return function, return, we wrap the component that is nested with the user context that we created and as a provider, and we pass the value that needs to be passed to the nested component. And in the nested component, what we do is we uh, import the same user context, and then we use the user context as consumer, and then get this user. But if you see in this method, there are a lot of nesting going on. We have a single layer of less nesting because I'm just using a single value, I'm just passing a single value. But if we are passing multiple values, the nested structure goes on, and it creates a lot of confusion, and the code becomes kind of messy. So what hooks does, it doesn't change anything in the provider context, but in the consumer context, it use the context hooks to minimize this code, and we can simply use context with the argument of user context, which is imported, and then use the values inside curly braces uh, to render them. So it kind of easy, it can makes the steps even easier for us. Okay, sorry. Okay, so next is use imperative handler. So use imperative handler customizes the instance value that is exposed to parent components when using ref. Uh, so just a second. This, okay, I'm not being able to show. Okay, yeah. So what we are trying to do over here is in similar way, we are having a button that increments the count, and we are having a count division to show the count, and the count gets incremented with a set count method, and using the use state to manage this state. So apart from that, what I want to do is I want to have another button that is that will increase the same count. But the issue is we don't have the reference of this increment function in this particular component. So use imperative handler will allow us to use that method from another component within the other functional component. So what it will do is we'll create a reference of using react.use ref, and we'll pass this reference uh, in our second component, that is increase component in this case. And to get that reference, we'll use forward ref with props and ref argument. And then later with use imperative handler, we use the same reference and pass the increment method over there. And what it will do is using ref.current, we will be able to use the increment method in the first component. So that's how we will be able to use a single method into different we'll be able to share to a single method with two different components. So as always, imperative code using refs should be avoided in most cases, but if used, it should always be used with forward ref. So that's a note that we need to remember. Now, the use debug value is used to display a label of custom hooks in React DevTools. So what it does is, if we use debug value, it kind of shows the hooks and the name of the custom hook, and shows whatever we want to show in the React DevTools, which is used in most of the cases in the shared like hooks that are part of shared libraries. So we can also format the debug value over here, but as it accepts a formatting function as an optional second parameter, but it's kind of expensive to derive, so it's highly unlikely to be used. It's also unnecessary unless a hook is actually being inspected in real time. So the most of the React developers, they don't recommend adding debug values to every custom hook. And as I said, it is mostly used for custom hooks that are part of shared libraries. So there might be instances where you have been you have been using the same repetitive and redundant stateful logic inside multiple components, and we are being able to handle this situation by relying on render props and higher order components. But with hooks, we can do it even in much simpler and cleaner way. So there are these are normal JavaScript functions which can be used with other hooks. For example, here I'm using use document title, and inside it I'm using use effects. So custom hooks can have different effects combined to generate a different and other logic to accomplish your goal. But the only thing is it should start with use keyword. So yeah, these are normal JavaScript functions which can be used with other hooks, and they contain a common stateful logic that can be reused with multiple components. These functions are prefixed with word use, as I said, and so basically, let's say if you have two functions, two components which implement the same common logic, you can create a third function with this common logic and implement it in other two functions. So yeah, there are a couple of rules that needs to be kept in mind while dealing with hooks. We can't call hooks from a regular JavaScript function. It has to be a React function component to call the hooks, and we shouldn't call hooks inside loops, conditions, or nested functions. And actually, it will throw error if we do. So always use hooks at the top level of your React function. By this, we ensure that the hooks are called in the same order each time as a component renders. That's why what allows React to correctly preserve the state of hooks between multiple use state and use effect calls. So there are a couple of best practices that I came across while going through hooks and trying to implement it. So a custom hook is a JavaScript function whose name start with the use and that may call other hooks. So we should always try to call hooks from custom hooks. Of course, if we have we have to use multiple hooks together. For example, in the previous slide, we used document title, which used a custom hook that calls use state and use effect hooks. So another thing is simplifying your hooks. So keeping React hooks simple will give us the power to effectively control and manipulate what goes on in a component throughout its lifetime. And also like avoid writing custom hooks as much as you can. If you want to use a inline hook, or you want to use a single hook, then you can avoid writing custom hooks, and instead of like creating own hook with just a single use state or use effect or any single hook. So one of the advantages of React hook is the ability to write less code that is easy to read. So try to keep the hook as simple as possible. And in some cases, the amount of for use effect and use state can still be confusing. And React render is really confusing. And when you keep the component organized, it will help in readability and keep the flow of your component consistent and predictable. If your hooks are too complicated, then you can always break them into sub division, sub custom hooks, and extract the logic of the component to custom hooks to make your code readable. So another thing that is really helpful is using React hook snippet in VS Code. React hook snippet is a Visual Studio Code extension to make it easier and faster to use React hooks. So currently it supports 5 hooks, I guess, the state hook, the effect, context, callback, and memo hooks. So also ESLint plugins are available, which are called ESLint plugin React hooks enforces the rules above. This comes in handy in enforcing the rules when working on a project. So it's highly recommended that you use these plugin when working on your project, especially when working with others, so that you can avoid these errors of uh, not following the rules. So you can add these plugins to project if you'd like to try it. So yeah, that's it for today, and thank you.